Could we call a meeting to order, please? Could I have a roll call, please?
Belsley.
Here.
Dobb.
Here.
Hare.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
Kaufman.
Here.
Newhouse.
Here.
Rainson.
Here. Let's rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no public hearings scheduled. Neither am I aware of any special reports, but I see we have an unusual number of people here tonight. Let me ask a couple of questions just so we can steer the meeting correctly. How many people are here to oppose the gambling ordinance? Would you raise your hand? How many of you plan to speak, would like to talk? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many are here in favor of the gambling ordinance? How many of you would like to speak? All right, it's going to be a long night. Let me suggest a couple of things. One is we probably won't be voting on the ordinance tonight. The ordinance is 6 pages long. We're probably going to make it a first reading, which means we're going to put it on file. The clerk/administrator will tell you how you can get to it and read it and find it. And the idea being that it is a long ordinance and it's important to everybody, so we thought we'd get it out in the public and let people have a chance to absorb it before we actually voted. So again, there probably won't be a vote tonight unless the trustees would like to do that. Secondly, let me suggest this. Since there's so many people speaking for both sides, I'll try to pick from both sides. Try not to repeat what somebody's already said. You know, it's a long night. All the trustees I know want to hear everything that you have to say, but if someone's just made your case for you, you really don't need to get up and say it all over again. The mere fact that you're all here tells us an awful lot. So with that in mind, let me see the hands of those who are not in favor of the ordinance. How about the gentleman in black who drove in the Corvette? Would you like to speak? Just go up to the podium and give us your name and address.
Okay, my name's Dennis Mott. I live at 34 Sapphire. I don't have any comments to make. It's just I would encourage the trustees to consider very carefully what we're doing. There's nothing that I can think of in this that you'd say this is a deal breaker as far as the moral fabric of our community is concerned. But on the other hand, each little piece counts. And if you look at what I think makes Morton special, it's not that we're the same as everybody else. It's that we do some things differently. And in the cases we do some things differently, we may appreciate those. Our zoning laws are a lot different than what other communities are, and we appreciate those. We spend money in schools, and we appreciate those. And we do have things that draw people into family-type activities, and we appreciate those. And I guess I'd say if we do things that draw people away from those things, that maybe create in one person or a small group an addictive behavior of any kind, then I'd say, do we really need to do this? Just because other communities have done it, is this something that we need to do? So I just would encourage you to act carefully with this, that this is just maybe one piece of maybe a small deterioration in what makes Morton different and special. Thank you.
Thanks. Show of hands of those who would like to speak in favor of video gambling. Chris?
My name is Chris Clark. I've lived in Morton since 1954, and I have certainly not seen any signs of any deterioration. Morton is a very good town. It's maintained. a good status. And very briefly, I'm going to say something here that is going to touch on a ragged edge. I think what we're dealing with here, to be perfectly frank, is some people who have particular beliefs that are their own and tie in with their religion may be swaying their opinion. And those elected officials are sworn to represent the populace, the welfare of the businesses, and the people, and the free will. And I think we're on a ragged edge of having those gray areas of religious preference dictate votes, and it's not correct. Thank you.
Chris, what is your address? I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
What is your address?
214 Ridge.
Thank you.
Show of hands of someone who would like to speak against video gambling. Lady in black. That sounds ominous, doesn't it?
My name's Cheryl Wethridge. I live at 939 East Jefferson Street. I'm here to urge you to consider voting no on the video gambling. And my comments relate to research reported by Dr. Charles O'Brien on behalf of the American Psychiatric Association. Briefly, he stated that gambling has been deemed as a behavior addiction, and he stated that it resembles drug addiction, not only in behavior, but how it affects the brain. And he goes on to say that this addiction can be severe in some people, and that it can wreck families and wreck lives. And Tom and Sam, I want to go back a few years. We served many years ago together on the Morton Drug and Alcohol Task Force. And we spent many, many hours and years taking a drug-free message to our community. And Tom, you served as the DARE officer in our Morton schools. In fact, I think you were one of the pioneers of bringing that program to Morton. So I would like to urge you and all of you to continue to protect our community by not allowing the addictive video gambling to come to our village. Thanks.
Show of hands of someone who would like to speak in favor. Gentleman in the far back center.
Good evening. I'm Tom Steness. I live at 120 East Van Buren. I moved here about 50 years ago, and I moved back here after moving away, and the reason I moved is because this is a great place to be. I've lived in big cities and many places, and Morton's where I want to be, and I can go to the big cities. A couple of key words that were used before, and I look at this as a question of choice. Everybody in here, I think, I would bet, have been into a convenience store or maybe to a liquor store or even club parties and functions on weekends, festivals and whatever. There's 50-50 that you can all buy, and probably all of us have, or most of us, whatever. Same way for the lottery. We can all become millionaires by buying a couple of lottery tickets. It's a question of choice. And I understand the word addiction. I think there's a big difference, but I'm not scientific on the difference in the brains and how that works. But we've all been in. We don't have to buy a lottery ticket. We don't have to buy a 50-50. That's gambling. And the bottom line is that this village is so good and so strong with the businesses. We're growing. The tax base is growing through the businesses. And if the people who want to have that entertainment, video game, that entertainment, they're going to go someplace else, whether they're addicted or whether they're just going to meet some friends and they'll have a little competition there. They're going to go someplace else. And we're then losing from our tax base, we're losing dollars. I don't think anybody's going to move out of town because of that. But the village has already done things with facade improvements and grants on new properties and all kinds of ways to stimulate growth and to hold on with what we've got. And I think that's at the heart of it. And there's certainly, in my opinion too, as Chris said, I believe there's some real blocks here in town, and I have nothing against all of those good old-time kinds of values that have existed in this town. But this is one issue that has become very, very modern, and if we don't do it, there's going to be an economic correction here, let's say. So I'm very much for it, and I think that we need to be very concerned about the people who we're going to lose and that amount of money and buying the gas and everything else that goes along with it. So thank you very much.
Are there any more that would like to speak against us approving a video gambling ordinance? Going once? Dave?
David Forbes, 842 East Jefferson. I live on the parade route. I've lived here for 20 years. I have appreciated the village of Morton and the family-friendly community that it is. I am here in opposing the issue of video gaming. It's already been said that it is very addictive. And I believe we are right now the only community in the Tri-County area that has voted down. It was voted down 5 years ago. And we can say we are unique, and then we could draw families to our community because we could say we are unique in the sense that we are against video gaming.
Are there more who would like to speak in favor of video gambling? Lady next to Marie.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Underwood. I live at 1253 East Monroe, and I'm not here because anyone asked me to speak. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I want to be here to support my parents, Steve and Marie Arundel, and Schooners, and all the other restaurants and bars that are here in town. I've heard many times over the years someone might say, oh, have you seen the Twins at Schooners? Have you seen the Tenderloins at Schooners? Or did you hear the band playing at Red Rock? Or Mullins, or how fun karaoke is at the office. But never have I heard about the video machines or any issues that they have caused at those places. My point being is that they were there for amusement and no one complained. Now we have the opportunity to add some excitement to our local businesses and add revenue to our town. I try to shop local whenever I can and keep business here in Morton, but I have no problem going to East Peoria, Bloomington, any other communities that might have something that Morton doesn't. And I know that a lot of people who enjoy video gaming are going to go to those towns also. You can go into the restaurants and bars and find video touchscreens, pool tables, darts, mini machines like that. And a lot of the times, those machines could be busier than the gambling machines. Everyone has something they do enjoy: shopping, eating, traveling, playing the machines, but just because they enjoy it doesn't necessarily mean it's an addiction. After the last meeting, I believe it was, there was a post, I think Mayor Ranson had put it on Facebook, about does the community think it should be allowed in town? At the time it seemed that it was about 75% were for it and 25% were not. I looked today, my husband looked, neither of us could find it, so I'm not sure. It could have been a mistake on my part that I couldn't find the poll, but it was kind of interesting to follow, to see what the community thought. A few people in the poll had mentioned the reason they didn't want it was because They didn't think we would be one of the top 10 cities, according to the Family Circle magazine. But after a quick Google search, there are several that do allow it, and a couple even have casinos in their towns. Whether we have it or not has nothing to do with making this town a great place to be and live. If you wonder if I'm up here in favor of it because I hope to take over Schooners one day, absolutely not. I have watched my parents pour their time, energy, and passion into making Schooners what it is today, and I wouldn't even know where to start. I believe 28 years in business in an ever-changing town is commendable. And I challenge any of you that are in here and have never been in a Schooner, quit crying. Any of you that are in here and that have never been to Schooners, go in this week, tell Marie who you are. I guarantee she'll be in there greeting everyone at the door with a hug and a smile like she does. My dad, Steve, will be in there fixing something. And they run a great business and a great town, and I hope you all vote yes in this matter to keep business in Morton. Thank you for your time.
Are there any more that would like to speak against the ordinance? Gentleman in the middle.
Ted Wittig Jr. I live at 1702 Deerfield Drive in Morton. I've been here before. I didn't mean to become a regular, but I will be as long as things like this are for the board. It is, I think, what you're seeing is not just about one issue. I think video gambling is the issue of the day, but I think what we're really talking about is something that's more of about the fabric. I think it's a fabric issue. I think it goes into people's worldviews and how they see things. Like, for example, it's great to have good fiscal policy. I'm thankful that you do. I appreciate that you the hard work that you do to keep our town in good shape financially. But I'm one of those people that I believe that while good financial policy and good stewardship of finances is very important, I by no means think it's the only thing that makes for a great city. If we think that financial policy, and particularly financial expediency, makes for a good town, then one of the things we run into is we're looking at financial policy as some kind of savior, and whether you think it is or not, I'll just say my belief that it is not. I am a big believer in good stewardship. Good stewardship is very important. And as a father, I'm teaching my daughters good stewardship. I'm thankful that they can be in a town that has great schools and a neat fine arts program and all those things. Safety, I love the fact that we can walk down the street. There's lots of things that I really, really like. But I will tell you, we didn't get to be the way this town is, a friendly place where people will go out of their way to help in the community, by just throwing values to the wind and just saying, hey, whatever goes. The people that came before us stood for something. Don't mistake that. The people that stood before us stood for something. Let's not forget it. Another thing is that there's been a real, in my mind, a real big misunderstanding about the word legal. Lots of things are legal, but it doesn't make them wise. Okay? Wisdom is very different than legal. There's lots of things that are legal. But let's think about this for a minute. Just because you can do all kinds of crazy things, or whatever you want to do, and you're not going to be arrested by Chief Hilliard, does it mean it won't leave scars in your life? Sorry. Consequences come. It's the law of reaping and sowing. Another thing, and I think this one I have to credit this one to my parents, and that is when I hear the everybody else is doing it thing, and I get that. I said it to my parents. Believe me, I did. But I'll tell you how Ted and Cindy Witzig, how it was growing up in their home. When I said to them, everyone else is doing it, the first thing they said was, what is our values? It wasn't, what is everybody else's? They started with, where are we? And you know what? Sometimes when they went, where are we? What are our values? You know what? Sometimes we made changes. They did. They weren't opposed to making adjustments with us as kids. But I guarantee you, my daughters, 12-year-olds going into 7th grade, when they've come to us with the everybody's doing it, right now everybody's got a cell phone, right? You know what? They'll have one soon, I'm sure. But you know what? When they say everybody's doing it, I say, but this is our home. My wife says, this is our home. And what I want to say is that if we think that we can separate out the difference between the values that are somehow in churches and families over here from a value in community, we are gravely mistaken. Community values affect everyone. And so I'm here today. As last time I really spoke to you as a psychologist. I talked about addiction. I talked about other things. Today, I really want to talk to you to remember that legal is not the same thing as wise. Good monetary policy, while excellent, is not a savior. And just remember, just because everybody is doing it doesn't mean we do it here. Thank you.
Seems like we're getting down to a very few hands. Would somebody on the side that's interested in that's being done like to close things up? Who's the gentleman with the mustache?
The beautiful haircut. Hi, I'm Todd, 48. I work at Schooners here in Morton. I actually moved out of Morton years ago and live in Marquette Heights. If you need the street address, I can give you that. The reason I came isn't because I'm being paid by Schooners of Morton or somebody twisted my arm. I watched the last council meeting via YouTube, and it lit a fire of passion inside of me to take a look at what are we actually fighting for or fighting against. It seems like there's two huge sides to an issue when I hear things like the effects of gaming are going to be insidious long-term and affect generations, and that it's not good stewardship to take advantage of people's unwise stewardship of their finances. We're making assumptions that the only people that are playing these games are addicts. That's what the world would want us to believe, that the people that gamble in gaming establishments are all putting the money in there because they're addicts. I think there's a real clouding of the issue when I stand here tonight and I hear things that we're affecting family values, when legal gaming is not intended for anyone under 21. It's not being put into schools. It's not being put into churches. It's being put in places where they serve alcoholic beverages to people of legal age. We're asking that, we're not saying, can everybody do it? I don't prescribe to that. If I looked at my father when I was growing up and said, but Dad, all my friends are doing it, he'd say, if they jumped off a bridge, are you going to do it too? But if I was faced with a choice, we heard tell of DARE. What does DARE teach? When faced with things, you make the right choice. If we teach family values, if we teach moral values, when somebody has the opportunity to make a choice, they make the correct choice based on their values. But they're allowed to have that choice. Our forefathers came forth and stood for something. They stood for freedom, democracy, the separation of church and state, and freedom of choice. That's what our country was founded on. If you look at the purpose of legal gaming, it is for entertainment, more so than it ever has been. There's a maximum of a $2 bet with a maximum payout from the state of Illinois of $500. There's lottery tickets that'll cost you $30. That'll pay you $4 million. That's going to entice an addict. We hear tale of addicts and families and homes being destroyed. The national average for gambling addiction is 2%. The national average for alcoholism is 12%. We allow drinking and alcohol in Morton, not because it changes the moral fabric, because it's a legal enterprise that's regulated by the state, the same legal enterprise that businesses in Morton want an opportunity to have. The notion that gambling saves the addict would be absurd. The notion that banning gaming would save the addict, that would be absurd. An addict, by definition, is somebody that has a physical and psychological dependency on psychoactive substances. So if you're telling me we ban gambling in Morton or gaming in Morton, it saves the addict, that'd be like saying drugs are illegal, nobody's addicted to them. It's the same philosophy. I'm trying to be brief, so I'm skipping a lot of my earlier points because people have made them that came before me. Yes, the businesses in Morton want a chance to make money off of state gaming. That's a small fraction of what these businesses are losing. They're losing the people that come in and spent money in their establishment because they can go a mile down the road and have the legal gaming. Frankly, standing behind the bar in Schooners, it was never about the games. It was about bringing the people in. If given a choice to have entertainment in one establishment or another a mile apart, I'll go to where the entertainment is. That's where the business has gone. There's businesses losing food and beverage sales at an alarming rate. There's businesses in Morton that if they don't pick up their sales, not just gambling, if they don't pick up their sales, they'll move to other venues or go out of business altogether. Is the city trying to deny a business an opportunity to compete in a market based on the fact that a gambler may lose their job? Is it enough for the city of Morton to be unique in that they don't have gaming in their alcohol establishments to alienate Morton businesses from making a profit? The board was instructed that it could not rely on the income that comes from legal gaming. I thought, okay, why would we not rely on income that comes from a legal enterprise? If you look at the city of East Peoria and Peoria's budget based on the Paradise Casino, they budget $2 million of income annually based on the revenue of the casino because it's documentable. You can track it. It's just like anything else. If I look at the trend of a business over 10 years and what affects that trend, I can forecast, like much of you do here on the council, what the income is going to be for the coming years. If you look from January through July, there's been a 1 to 2% variance, which in most cities, including Washington, Peoria, Creve Coeur, and Pekin, of a couple $100 either way in the revenue generated from illegal gaming. Movie theaters base their income on people spending discretionary funds on entertainment. It's no different. It's the same thing that their business is based on. It's been forecastable. It's been increasing in numbers since its inception. You can follow the trend. The gloom and doom that's been implied about legal gaming in the Tri-County area has not happened. Home foreclosures are down. Bankruptcies are down. Unemployment rates have dropped. So all this degradation that's supposed to happen with legal gaming has not happened in every community that has it. I don't see that Morton would be any different. I don't want to debate the psychology of addiction. I agree that there are addicts and that addicts need help, but I think there's other help that they could receive other than banning legal enterprise in Morton. These establishments are controlled and visited by the State Gaming Board. Just like if you took and instituted prohibition again in the United States. That did not help with the illegal side of things. I've heard tale of organized crime coming to Morton with the gaming machines, and that we would be under the rule of the seedy underworld, if you will. When the state mandates that you lose your liquor license if you move a machine even 1 foot from where it's established on their site visit, that's restrictions that are not seen in other areas. And I don't see where Family Circle looked at any bars. They actually looked at affordable housing, quality schools, access to health care, low crime rate, and financial stability. It's based on a research firm data. It wasn't based on a visit to Morton. They didn't base it on the number of liquor establishments that we have in Morton, making it more family friendly. They didn't care what went on in the liquor establishments because they were not concerned with those drawing families to Morton. In closing, I would like to urge you to look at the benefit to local businesses, government, and the citizens of Morton. Don't let the implied dangers of legal gambling change the statistical research. Don't let the vision of a few influence the known realities. I'm not asking that we be able to prey on the weak, steal from the addict, or turn Morton into the seedy underworld of Tazewell County. I'm asking that the businesses in Morton be afforded every opportunity to make a living. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone that would like to speak against the ordinance at this point? Is there anyone that would like to speak for the ordinance? Mike, you had your hand up a minute ago. Mike. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, would you go next, please?
Hi, Andy Saxma, 201 North Missouri. Been in Morton for 15 years. I just wanted to cite a couple, and I'm here to urge you to vote against video gambling. I just wanted to cite a little bit of research. This is from an article from Time, 1998. They say professionals who specialize in gambling addiction agree that video poker provides an exceptionally fast track to addiction. Among the 5% of the gamblers who develop a problem, it takes those who bet on horses 20 years to hit bottom. By contrast, video gamblers get to that stage in 2 years. I'd like to cite, I spent a little bit of time in looking on the internet, and in Portland, they had a kind of a diner's guide, and I looked through and I tried to see how many of them had video gambling and how they talked about video gambling. And I think there's about 120 on the site. Of those, 3 of them mentioned video gambling, and they call it video crack. One of them stated, just take a little excerpt, near video crack machines. Another one said video crack all day. Another one said copious video crack. If you do a little searching on the internet, you find this is called video crack, and you got to ask yourself, why do they call it video crack? The Illinois Family Institute has an article, has some research by Professors Earl Ginos and David Mustard. And this is regarding the financial benefits of gambling. They say for every $1 of for every $1 of revenue gambling that interests indicate is being contributed in taxes, it costs the taxpayers $3 or more in social welfare, criminal justice, and regulatory cost. The average cost to society per pathological gambler is $13,586. Just a couple more items I wanted to mention. I wanted to touch on the alcohol versus gambling issue. I agree that neither one of them have a whole lot of. There's negative to drinking and there's negative to gambling, but we're talking about putting them together in a bar situation, and I just don't think we. You take one bad and you take another bad and you add them together, you get worse. And I think it's just too chancy. There's just, as I think about video gambling, there's really no win to it. There's really no saving grace, and it's just too risky. And I don't think it fits the personality of our town. So I urge you to vote against it. Thanks.
Mike, did you still want to speak?
I'm Mike Bush. I represent the Arundels, Chris Clark, and Bill and Christy Engel in this matter. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I won't go on for 10 minutes. Mr. Witzig's right. Let's remember our forefathers, the people that came before us. Let's remember the delegates to the Constitutional Convention that opened every session with a prayer asking for God's guidance, and they ended every session with a prayer thanking him for his guidance. And as soon as our present Constitution was adopted in July of 1789, the first Congress convened, and surprisingly enough, the first Congress decided, wait a minute, this gives the Congress and the federal government too much power. We need to limit our own powers. So they appointed James Madison and a committee to draft some amendments. And they drafted 10 amendments that we call the Bill of Rights. And make no mistake about it, the Bill of Rights were put in that order because they were put in the order of importance as determined by our founding fathers. The First Amendment guarantees our most basic freedoms. Our Second Amendment gives us the right and the means by which to overthrow a tyrannical government if that government takes our basic rights away. The first words of the Bill of Rights apply to the government's attempt to impose their own religious beliefs upon the masses. All the founding fathers were deeply religious, but all of them had enough of 100 years of the crown cramming the Church of England down their throats. I think there's an 800-pound gorilla in the room that I really do think nobody sees except me. I think everybody on this board is honest, ethical, doing the best for Morton. I don't mean to impugn anybody's personal integrity, but let's be honest. There are some of these board members that can't and will not address this issue fairly because they attend or are members of the churches that oppose it. It's a basic conflict of interest. You know, consider this. Do you think any of those trustees would be allowed to sit on a jury if this issue was to be decided in civil court? The answer is no. Do you think any of those trustees could sit as a judge? If a judge was in the same situation and didn't voluntarily recuse himself, he would probably have charges brought against him for violation of the Judicial Ethics Act. Now, I assume that you're going to discuss this matter with Mr. Davies or your own personal attorneys, and I want you to do so. Understand, I'm not accusing anybody of violating the Illinois Ethics Act. The Illinois Ethics Act has loopholes in it that you could drive a semi through. The Illinois Ethics Act was passed by the crooks in Chicago so that they could keep being crooks. That's not the issue. The issue is whether any trustee is unable to fairly consider this matter due to his or her deep religious beliefs, which my clients and I do not impugn and we respect. And the answer is yes. And there's a line of cases that finds a common law conflict of interest. And I won't blather on about this any longer. If I'd ask that somebody give Tom permission to call me and I'll discuss the arcane legal things with that. My argument would also be that in this particular circumstance, not only do you have a conflict of interest, it's unconstitutional for people who cannot separate their own religious views to act in such a manner as to impose those views on others. Another thing, I'm really tired of hearing about poor, helpless addicts. You know, I know something about addiction. I've never made a secret. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I went to treatment 26 years ago. You know, I know what I know about addiction because I lived it. I didn't read some textbook by some Harvard egghead, likely the same guy that tells us we shouldn't keep score in Little League games. You know, who cares if it's an addiction or it's a disease? The part that nobody's ever telling you is an addiction is the only disease that is totally within the control of the victim, and every symptom of that disease can be immediately eliminated if that person makes a decision to quit the addictive behavior. It's just that simple. You know, I get so sick, oh, that poor lady weighs 420 and a moo-moo. She has a food addiction. Or Charlie Sheen has a sex. It's all bunk. They may have an addiction. I don't think most of these people who keep talking about addiction can even tell you what addiction is. I can't. You know, but the first step of AA is I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable. It didn't say the village of Morton admitted I was powerless over alcohol. The third step is I made a decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God. It doesn't say the village of Morton did that. There is no step in AA that says, I promise I'll try to quit drinking if only the village of Morton will keep me from buying alcohol. You know, this whole thing about addiction is a bunch of bunk. And the problem with this whole deal is I'm not belittling anybody's view. These are deeply religious people. My clients and I have great respect for them and their religious views. They have every right to express those views. They have every right to live those views. They have every right to try to convince others to share their views. But the problem we're having is nobody's come before this board and said, I'm just against it because, in my opinion, it's contrary to the will of God and it's contrary to the teachings of my church. That would be true. And no one could argue with that statement. But instead, we get all these made-up facts and anecdotes to justify something that can't be justified. You can't justify faith. Isn't that what it is? Nobody can give you a spreadsheet to show there's a God or write an archaeological report and prove that Jesus lived. We just, we Christians believe that stuff. There's no footnotes in the Ten Commandments, but you're hearing just a bunch of anecdotal poppycock in opposition to video gaming. And I will give you some facts. If, in fact, let me just start over. Mr. Mayor, you'll probably be called upon to break a tie. You have a hard decision to make. If I correctly understand your position during the campaign, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's that if gambling in no form whatsoever, whether it be lotto or video gaming, had ever existed in Morton, you would unequivocally be against it just as a matter of principle. But in deciding that issue, you would also have to take into account that it was allowed for 30 years and that removing it simply because something illegal became legal represents a severe economic punishment to the people you remove it from. The only thing I'd ask you to do is when you evaluate this, please evaluate facts. Don't evaluate stories. Don't evaluate anecdotes. If there is evidence to prove that we can expect the divorce rate to immediately climb in Morton because of video gaming, if video gaming is introduced, I would think that somebody come up with a study where that's showing that's what happened elsewhere. Since we hear a lot of anecdotal evidence, I'll tell you this much. A majority of my practice is divorce work. I've probably done somewhere between 500 and 700 divorces. I honestly do not recall any divorce involving gaming. I'm sure if you asked Tom the same question, he'd probably have a similar answer. That's bunk. But if you really believe it, I'll be happy to arrange an interview with you with Judge Mayer. She's probably presided over 3,000 divorces in Tazewell and Peoria County. Talk to her. Find out if wherever gaming was introduced, divorces immediately rose. And I think you'll find, I don't know what she's going to say, but I would suspect she's going to say she didn't ever notice anything because it's bunk. I do somehow question the fact that all of a sudden you have people before the board that are telling you all these terrible things are going to happen if you allow video gaming. The same people didn't say a word. Everybody in Morton knew that it was going on. If it injured children 25 years ago, if it tore up marriages, if it subjected these poor addicts who can't do anything about it to problems, why didn't anything do it? Why didn't anybody say anything? And to be truthful, the trustees that are against it, I'm kind of incredulous that if you really believe that it's terrible, if you really believe it destroys families, if you really believe it causes problems as severe as we're being told, why didn't one of the trustees who are against it call the chief of police and say, we expect you to enforce the law? Why didn't the trustee call the state's attorney? Why didn't the trustee call the Illinois State Police, the attorney general? The answer is because it wasn't a problem. It's only a problem now because we have to make a public stand on it. You know, you've heard a lot of stories and a lot of anecdotes, but I'll give you some facts right now. And I'd ask you to please consider only facts. You know, here's a fact. Marie Arundel will open her books to you. She'll prove that she's lost tens of thousands of dollars because of the loss of the video poker machines. And those losses come as a result of not only the receipts from gaming, but the loss of business. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to realize before Illinois imposed a statewide anti-smoking ban, restaurants and bars experimented from time to time, making their establishments anti-smoking. When they did, their business went down the tubes. They immediately changed the policy. A lot of people enjoy it. They're going to go somewhere else. In this case, those type of people only have to walk a block and a half beyond the village limits. These poor, helpless addicts. I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to put a barbed wire fence around Morton so that they can't walk 2 blocks and find a video gaming machine. You know, here's another fact. This isn't a threat, it's an economic reality. If this is not adopted, Bill Ingold's going to leave town. They're having trouble paying their real estate taxes, their dram shop insurance, and everything else. And you're taking the means away for them to do that. You know, here's another fact. When Chris Clark retires, he's not going to open up a restaurant or bar in Morton. And here's a fact that everybody ought to consider, so especially with the EDC and all the action Morton's done to attract business. I've heard several people, some of the trustees say, gee, we'd like downtown Morton to be more like Peoria Heights. That ain't going to happen. You're never going to get another bar and restaurant in Morton outside of the possibility of a chain out by the interstate that caters to travelers. Nobody's going to come to downtown Morton and open a bistro that you can sit out on the sidewalk with. If you're removing the means by which they can pay their rent and their real estate taxes and their dram shop insurance, it's not going to happen. No one will do it. You know, here's another fact. If this doesn't pass, Stephen Marie Arundel and Bill and Christy Ingold, you're taking tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars away from them because their property will become virtually insaleable for use as a restaurant and bar, period. They'll be selling an empty building. And I just think that it's somewhat unfair for people to come before you and say, we want you to impose our principles on other people, and by the way, we expect them to pick up the tab for it. You know, in this packet of things I gave you, there's an excerpt from Family Circle magazine. It shows you the factors. You know, in the legal profession, everybody knows what hearsay is. Double hearsay is Frank said that Tom said. Triple hearsay is Frank said that Tom said that Bill said. These people get up and frankly, they just blather. Family Circle, blah, blah, blah. What does that mean? Are they trying to say that you would not have got the award if they'd allowed video gaming? Are they trying to say that was even considered? I mean, you're the mayor of the town, Mr. Mayor. You can pick up the phone easily enough and get through to an editor at that magazine and ask him, if we'd have had video gaming, would we have got the award? Do you consider that, as a matter of definition, a town that allows video gaming is not family friendly? Don't rely on everything that everyone comes up and just says without any proof. Check it out. The only thing my clients and I want you to do is fairly evaluate all the factors, but rely on facts, not fantasies. You know, another fact is If you don't approve this, you are summarily removing conservatively $500,000 per year from the hands of Morton businessmen, just to enforce somebody else's moral principles upon them. We've heard it's damaging to children, all that. Contact me. Marine Schooners used to be the go-to place out after football and basketball games. Hundreds of Morton families brought their kids in there. Their kids ran around the bars. They even touched video gaming machines. We'll get you the names of those people to talk to, see if they think it harm. I'll confess, when I used to hang out at Schooners years and years ago, Marie'd bring in the three little girls. Buffy, the girl that spoke, she was 3 years old. I'd give them a roll of quarters to play the video poker machine. When Buffy got to kindergarten, the teacher asked her how she learned to count, and she said playing video poker. You know, she has 2 children. She goes to church religiously. There's no problem. It's bunk. So I guess I will conclude it there, and I would just ask for the board's permission to have Mr. Davies call me, and I'd be happy to make my esoteric laws arguments about the unconstitutionality and common law theories of conflict of interest to him. I won't waste a half hour more of your time. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Gentleman in the middle.
Good evening. My name is Gary Rassi. I live at 25678 Broadway Road here in Morton, just a half mile outside the city limits. So it is safe to say that I did not vote against any of you, neither did I vote for you. I didn't have that option on my ballot. So I, like some of you, are a lifelong Morton resident, have had the privilege of growing up here, have enjoyed 50-some years here. I had the privilege of being on the Morton School Board for over 15 years, sat at some of the meetings with some of you that are on here. We often were faced with the same issues of how do you get more revenue when there's just no revenue out there to get. Sometimes people come to you with ideas that are good ideas for generating more revenue. Sometimes the ideas aren't as good as you'd like to see, and you have to make that decision. What I would ask, I respect all of the businesses that are in Morton. I appreciate them. I go to some of them to eat, to shop. What I would ask is that you remember that you represent the 16,000 plus people that are here in Morton, Illinois. It's not just the people that own businesses, it's the people that live in all the homes that are here. And I would ask that you also find out from them how they feel about this too. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Lady in yellow.
My name is Sharon Doge. I live at 105 South 4th in Morton. I've been a friend of Marie's for probably 50-some years, and everybody talks about family values and this and that. There's nowhere you can go in Morton that is more family friendly. She's always there to greet people, to talk to them. It's always a good place to go. And, you know, she shouldn't lose revenue because she's not able to have these machines. I just don't think it's fair. If other people down, like a mile down the road, have these machines, why they can't have them also? You know, everybody talks about values and family and this and that. The values are very strong in that business and with her. I just wanted to say that.
Would anyone else like to speak? Lady in the front.
My name is Vicki Horn, and I live at 119 East Hazelwood, and I also have lived in Morton all my life. I've been a teacher in Morton this is my 37th year. Been through the DARE program lots. Actually know a lot about addiction. We have a son who has some problems with that. And again, as was spoken earlier, the addiction has nothing to do with the town of Morton. Addiction has to do with the individual. And if the individual doesn't want to gamble, then the individual doesn't have to gamble. But I think the opportunity should be there for the people that want to. And I also believe that I don't want some of these businesses to leave town. I've had 12 years of raising money for Relay for Life in this town as well. And I could not have done that without Bill and Christy Ingold. Every one of our fundraisers was done at Red Rock. Every one of them was successful. I also had a good friend named Terry Horner, who died last year. Because of their generosity, we raised over $30,000 for her family. Some of the people who are against video gambling were at that fundraiser. You don't have to gamble if you go into Christy and Bill's establishment. You don't have to gamble if you go into Schooners. It's your choice. And I think, being a teacher and also teaching about the Constitution, that choice was given to me as an American. That's one of the things that I talk about in my classroom all the time, is that we have those choices. And I think when the board or any governmental group decides that it's their choice to take away our choices, that's not the American way. I think, being an American, that I have lots of choices. I can choose to drink if I want to, if I'm 21. I can choose to gamble. I can choose to drive a car. All of these things have ages attached to them. Once you're of age, it's your choice. But if we don't ever have the choice, that's a completely different issue. I have to say that one of my reasons for being up here is personal, because I love going to Red Rock. Because they're friendly people. They know me when I go in there. They're nice. They've raised a lot of money for us. And it has nothing to do with gambling. I don't think that's going to change Red Rock and the way it is. I don't think it's going to change Schooners and the way it is. Those are both family-friendly places. Lots of families take their kids there to eat. They don't have to gamble. But those of us that are 21 and over should have the choice. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak? Lady in the back.
Hello to all of you. I am here, I'm Sarah Grimm, and I live at 62635 Broadway Road. I'm another one who can't vote for you, can't vote against you, but care about what happens in Morton. I am here really, I think that both of those restaurants that we've talked about are wonderful places. Our family has gone there many a time, has nothing to do with what I'm going to say at all. And the people themselves, makes them no less wonderful people because they are wanting video gambling in their facilities. But I'm here for a totally different reason. And that reason is that I'm on a state board in Springfield. And our director has supplied information to different people, and I have supplied information, and others on the board have supplied information so we can get information out to understand the whole deal. And I'm here to say one thing, and that is that I wish that you wouldn't decide this issue right now if it's going to be a tied vote and you're going to decide to, and I'm going to use the terminology, give in. Because I say this because I talked with Keith Summer just the other day, and we work with Keith so closely down in Springfield because we work with the legislature all the time. And the gambling board is not something that any one of you, no one in this room, there's not one person in this room that would sit on that board. They're not the best of people in the world. They don't want the best for our people, and they are very interested in getting town by town by town to give in and go their way. They want us to, they are cooking up a scheme right now as we're all sitting here. They're working on a special scheme that has to do with women and gambling, because they have found out that gambling is something that an awful lot of women are called to participate in. And they I think that they were taken by surprise with that, and they have a special system that they're beginning to set up so that it will appeal to women in Illinois. Now then, you don't have to believe what I'm saying, but I'm telling you that our director and the legislators, we vote together. We go to talk with them when different bills come up, and time after time after time, the same legislators and the same senators that you would want to vote your heart, they're against gambling. They're against video gambling because they understand that the gambling board wants to get themselves into wherever you are, and they want to expand it. They're not interested in good. They're interested in evil. They're not interested in things that have always been something that has been good for Morton. Now, you could table it. You could look into this further. It's a big issue. It's bigger than Schooners. It's bigger than Red Rock, both places that I like. I would want to participate in. I talked to our director today, and she said that, they do not understand how that gaming board works. She goes to Chicago. She goes to St. Louis. She goes to national conferences. She is able to go and hear these different gambling, the different gambling groups, how they connive with each other. They're not interested in our good. It's a bigger thing than money. And I wish that you would table it and get more information. And if you're not willing to do that, then vote your conscience, I guess. But I am very concerned about the whole issue, or I wouldn't be here tonight. I've been on the board in Springfield for about 11 years. I've been all over the state at these different kinds of meetings. The gambling board is not your friend. Don't get in bed with them. I'm also a Christian. I'm not here because of church or anything like that. That's not my primary purpose. Of course, it reflects back to that, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because of what I just said. They're not our friend. Please look into it further. Find out for yourselves. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Lady in the glasses with her hand up.
I'm Beth Mott. My address is 34 Sapphire. And after everything Sarah just said, I hesitate to even come up because I just want you to remember what she said. But I do want to just add two quick little things. Within 2 years of the riverboat coming to East Peoria, Proctor opened their gambling addiction center. That's not a coincidence. The other thing is, we lived in England for 3 years, and when smoking was banned, it kind of went all around the world. Well, it ended up in England, and those pubs, the owners of the pubs were very upset because that's what people did. They went to the pubs, they smoked, they drank, they enjoyed company, and went home. Smoking was huge. But the interesting part of that, the pubs saw their revenues increase 17% in the first year after that happened because they focused on serving families. So it ended up being a huge win. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Chris, you already spoke once. Could sort of wait till we get everybody.
All right, fine.
All right, why don't you finish it up then?
I don't need a microphone. I would just like to say that this allegation that our gaming board is a bunch of dark people that are lurking underground trying to take us down, I see no facts, figures, substantiation, or anything to support that. And I think at this point that needs to be totally dismissed. This is a group of, I believe, over 50 people that have been appointed to what's considered to be a fairly important group to oversee a very important situation. And I think these allegations without facts are way out of line.
I think everyone's had an opportunity to speak who wanted to. We certainly appreciate your coming here to do so. We'll now move on to the second piece of the public's participation, which is we have a consent agenda, and tonight's consent agenda includes the August 1st and August 19 minutes and our bills for this month. Would anyone in the audience like those pulled for further examination? Would any of the trustees like to pull any of those things?
Yes, Your Honor. Item A2.
A2? Mm-hmm. Anything else? Can I have a motion to approve the remainder?
So moved.
Second. Steve and Jeff. Call the roll.
Dodd.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Newhouse.
Yes. Trustee Herman?
Thank you, Your Honor. One minor correction on the minutes of the August 19th meeting under my area. Mid-paragraph, the resolution will allow Good Energy to seek bids for the village's electrical supply under this program at an opportune time before the current term expires. It says after the term expires. So if we could just put after the word program, at an opportune time before the current term expires. Because we definitely want to bid before the term expires.
Any other changes?
So with that change, Your Honor, I would move the approval of item A2.
Second by Jeff. Call the roll.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Jeff seconded, Ginger moved.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Dodd.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
I have 3 items. Ordinance 1313 is a change in the liquor license. Wines and More downtown sells wine and is able to offer small samples. What they'd like to do is improve their liquor license so they could offer wine by the glass. Can I have a motion to do that so we can discuss it?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on that? Call the roll.
Hare.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Dobb.
Yes.
Next item is a resolution, 913, for an engineering contract. At the last board meeting, the board approved certain expenses associated with the plaza, and we now have a contract and an associated resolution. I would appreciate a motion to consider.
So moved, Your Honor.
Newhouse,
Second.
second Jeff. Any discussion?
Just, I was going to ask on the contract that we did amend it when we made it so that the line items will be included on the proposed plan, correct?
That is correct. The original proposal in February was based on a contract that's very similar and did include the line item costs, so it would be exactly the same in this case.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Shoot.
The revised resolution that we received in a separate mailing, the $2,700 for any additional work that the Director of Public Works may require, would that be part of the $17,000?
Yes.
Okay. And could you, Craig, give us an example of what that might be?
Yeah, I mean, there's a fiber optic running on the site, possibly a little bit of survey required, traffic. I don't anticipate using that, but we talked about putting a little bit of money there in case those needs come up. So mostly survey, some things that we couldn't do with our own staff that we need a little more engineering on.
And then the 17,000, would that be, I mean, I read what would be included in that, but I guess I'm wondering if a plan is brought to us and then we have to send it back, is that all part of the 17,000? If we say, well, let's maybe move this piece, or are we going to, I mean, is this like till we get to an end product, basically?
Fair question. And when we calculated that amount of money, that was with the assumption that there would be some, more than one step in the process. Now, ultimately, I guess if we revise it enough times, at some point, we say, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. But the intention of the $17,000 is to provide some level for that, because I don't know that it's likely that we will get a final plan in one shot. I have recommended to the committee that we ensure that trustees and others who are interested have a chance to inquire about it and possibly have an interim report to the village board. But it is meant to encompass some level of additional work to respond to our input.
Okay. Well, you and I are in a unique position because we sit on both committees. I had to miss the last couple of meetings of the downtown because of my father's illness, but so I would defer to, the other trustees, but in regard to the rest of this, but I think that you and I are we're going to get to hear both sides of it. The others may not, so I'll defer to their thoughts on that.
There is adequate oversight.
Randy?
More of an observation. In the agreement, it says that there's a copy of our standard hourly rates that's attached, and I did not see that. Do you have that on file, Craig? Or?
Yeah, I can get it from Bruce too. I mean, typically those rates, while they are public, aren't shown in every piece that we send out, because there's the same consulting engineers that have the same rates. But yes, we do have those on file. Likewise, other consultants that we do work with. If they were all the same, it'd be easy, but they're not all the same from group to group.
I expect, yeah.
Any other discussion on this? Call the question.
Herman,
Yes.
Kaufman,
Yes.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Belsley,
Yes.
Dobb,
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
My last item is Ordinance 1314, the video gambling ordinance. Before we have a motion, I would like to suggest that we file it, put it on file, and make this a first reading of this ordinance. It is a 6-page ordinance, and it's obviously a question that a lot of people have a lot of concerns about. So I would suggest that, I would like to propose that we just make this a first reading.
Ron, with that, Mr. Mayor, with that, I just wanted to talk about that real quick so that we can get a consensus, because this is a very important issue. We have a lot of people with input on all sides of this. One of the things typically when we do have a first reading is that in the next meeting is when the vote would be, is that I know at that meeting, all 6 trustees will not be here. I firmly believe that this needs to be taken into vote with all 6 trustees here. So I would like some discussion with the trustees on that, so that if it's not the next meeting, but the first one in October, to see what our feelings would be on that. Want to discuss that. So I agree with you.
Yeah, we would then have a first and second reading and vote in October if it suits everyone.
Fine with me.
That's good.
Will
So I have kind
everyone
of a-
be here at the first meeting in October? Do we know?
Does anybody plan to not be here?
If the ship does not sink with me in it, I will be here.
Let's send a boat for you. We need your boat. If everyone is, can I get away with just a?
Yes, I
seems
think
to be-
everybody's on
All right.
record that we don't plan to vote on it until the first meeting in October, and that's on the assumption that
Everyone will be here.
everyone's here. If, I would presume if some emergency arose that somebody couldn't be here, we'd wait till the next meeting. I think that's what everybody's saying, correct?
Yeah.
If that suits everybody, we'll move on to the clerk. You are now the clerk.
And I have nothing as the clerk.
Now you're the administrator.
I do have something. Okay. The first item on my list is the interfund transfers, and this is to pay for projects for the street overlay, Washington Street and Greenwood Street. I am asking for approval to transfer $1,099 from the general fund and $93,000 from the water and wastewater depreciation fund to the capital projects fund.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Belsley seconded.
Belsley?
Yes.
Dobb?
Yes.
Hare?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Kaufman?
Yes.
Newhouse?
Yes.
The second item on my list is, tonight I have, for your approval, resolution number 1013, a resolution approving an agreement with the Tazewell County Health Department. This is regarding the recycling collection program. Each year we apply for this grant, and we received it this year, $22,500. We received this because of the amount of recycling we do here in the village. Morton residents diverted 2,154,000 pounds of recycled materials from being deposited in landfills from October 11th to September 12th, which was an increase over the prior year. And we estimate that there are about 795 tons of yard waste that were diverted from waste landfills with our land waste program that we do, that we offer in the fall and in the spring. And because of that, Tazewell County has given us this grant, which we use those funds to fund that yardscape waste program. So I am asking.
I would move approval of that for the.
Second.
Who second? Sam second. Sam second.
Dobb?
Yes. Just one comment, Your Honor.
I'm sorry.
It's worth noting for folks, there's a debate sometimes about, do you recycle to save personal money or do you recycle? The reason for recycling, principal reason, is to prevent filling up landfills. All over the world, the movement is to close down landfills. They're not very good ways of disposing of waste. So the value to the community is direct in the sense that we get this grant, indirect in the sense that we don't have to find more costly ways of disposing of waste material, so we all want to recycle. in order to help manage landfill density. So if we can have a personal savings along with it, that's wonderful, but the principal reason is that someday we're all going to face a situation like they're facing in Europe, and we're going to have much more expensive means of disposing of waste. I will probably be long gone at that point, but it will come.
Good point.
And this is our 17th year of receiving that
Yes.
grant. And I would also encourage everybody, we will have the yard waste program here again shortly. Play by the rules and help us out because it cuts the cost down, because that program costs anywhere between $35,000 and $80,000. So we do have to subsidize it. It's been as high as 80, but we try to keep it down in the 30s. We don't get it all done for 22,000. So if you're going to leave too big of branches, too big of stumps, we're going to pay for it.
No
So,
concrete.
Right. We need to play by the rules to help this continue, because there has been talk in the tight budgets. About 3 years ago, we cut $2 million out of the budget. That was on the chopping block, and we saved it because our costs went from 80 to 35. So we need to encourage citizens to dump appropriately when we do that again. That's all I have.
But good work, Mortonites.
Call it.
Doug?
I have one question for you.
Oh, sorry. I'm not doing my job.
That's okay, she's calling me first anyhow. This doesn't set the dates yet, correct?
I'm sorry.
This doesn't set any dates, this is an agreement for it.
That's an agreement for it, and then there is an agreement that we signed. It's for this year.
That's right, but I mean, it doesn't set the dates of the collection.
Oh, of the collection. I'm sorry. No, it does not.
Okay.
We do that.
I was just checking because once in a while the weather varies and you never know. Yes?
Craig does that, and then we blame him every year for
Oh, it's Craig's fault when it doesn't
Not the
work.
trustee in charge, Craig.
I wasn't going to speak yet, but I have been working with the group that does this, and right now, October 21st is the date, so if you would like to sit down and we can discuss that, but it is some coordinating to get them up here to do it. So October 21st, and we'll have information at the next two board meetings to go over all the dates of the disposal.
Okay.
Now, would anybody else like to comment on that?
I think I can
Call the question. Quick.
I
said yes, twice already.
Okay.
Yes. That's two for Tom.
Herman? Yes. Kaufman?
Yes.
Newhouse?
Yes.
Belsley?
Yes.
And that is all for me.
Let me ask you, we have put one of these ordinances on file. How can the public see those ordinances?
There are two ways. One of them is we have created a place on our website that says ordinances and resolutions under consideration. That would be under the home tab. You'll find it in there. There'll also be recently approved resolutions or ordinances that you can view. We get a lot of questions of people calling to find out. So the one way is you can go online. The other way is you can come into the office, and we have a copy up at the front that you can come and look at, or if you'd like us to make you a copy, we can also do that.
Thank you. Chief of Police.
Yeah, the next week is our 47th annual Pumpkin Festival. With that, I've been working closely with the Chamber of Commerce on that, and they've given me a list of streets that they wanted to close up. I've looked at that with them and okayed those street closures. It's the same as it has been before. A copy of those streets and the dates and times that are requested to close these should be in each board member's packet. In addition to that, I've also been contacted again by the band, the high school band, for their annual competition to close the 300 block of North Illinois on Saturday, the 14th of the festival, and that's also been approved.
Thank you. Anything else, Chief?
No, sir.
General Counsel.
I have nothing to report.
Director of Fire and Emergency.
Nothing tonight, Chairman.
Director of Public Works.
Yeah, I just had one item. I wanted to give a quick update on the East Cortland, North Morton Avenue Improvement Project. I've been working with the mayor on some of this. Plans are complete. They're out for bid. Tend to open bids September 12th and come to the board, hopefully if everything comes in under budget, for approval on the 16th. And the reason why I bring it up tonight is this is a very big project. We got to do a lot of work in a short amount of time. So we'll be working over the next couple of weeks with local businesses on the maintenance of traffic throughout construction. Unfortunately, this is happening at the same time as 155-74. Unfortunately,
can't really get around that, but we've been working very diligently, obviously trying to save the taxpayer money at the same time. So there will be some significant staging of traffic through this project, and it will affect the public. I do get a lot of complaints on a lot of the traffic throughout town, trying to make progress. If you got questions going forward, call me. But we will be working on this. I just want to let everybody know that there's a lot in the works here. If you have questions, please sit down with me. They're very thick pages of plans. I'd love to sit down and go over with you because I know there'll be a lot of questions from the public as we go forward in the media, because it will affect traffic at the end of this year too, October and November. So that's all I had tonight, Your Honor.
Planning and zoning?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Trustees, Trustee Belsley.
No business to take place, but did have a comment or a request, I guess, is the list of streets and the dates of their closings that Chief Hilliard referenced. If we could have that posted maybe on the website as well,
Certainly.
might be helpful. There's a lot of streets, a lot of activities, and various times and dates for the different closures, so it might be helpful to reference. That's it.
Trustee Dobb.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Trustee Hare.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Trustee Herman.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Trustee Kaufman.
Nothing tonight.
Trustee Newhouse.
2 items, Your Honor, from the proceedings of the Plan Commission meeting this past week. We have an application for a special use permit for the operation of a retirement center at 525 Highland Street. That's petition number 13-10 SP. And that is actually an assisted living facility. I think each of you got, I placed one of these folders in your mailbox. A virtually identical site is being completed in Washington called Hollybrook. The developers, I believe, have about 18 of these places, and the Plan Commission has recommended unanimously that we approve. It would be an asset for the village, and good use of the land. There are no zoning conflicts. It's like an attractive facility, good track record from the developer. I recommend approval. So moved.
Second.
Second by Jeff. Call. Wait a minute. Are there any questions or comments? Can you call it?
Hare.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Dobb.
Yes.
Second item, Your Honor, is approval of a special use permit, petition 13-11 SP, to allow a drive-in restaurant at 903 West Jackson Street. That is the new Pizza Ranch site, and the only reason the special use permit on there is because while it is not really a drive-in restaurant, it meets the definition for purposes of the special use permit. It's required. It's actually a window at which people will collect phoned-in orders, and there is no, it's on private property off of Martha's Boulevard, and there's no traffic issue related to nearby streets. Again, recommend approval.
Second.
Jeff, second. Any
Martha's
discussion?
Parkway, sorry.
Any discussion, folks?
I know we
Call
saw
it.
the drawing.
Oh,
but
I'm
there
sorry.
was
I didn't hear you.
That's okay, I'm sorry. A suggestion of moving the sign, is that?
That
like
was
the
approved.
Rogers?
That was
And
approved. That was a
that
zoning
way.
board of appeals, so that does not require action by this board.
Okay.
One last item, Your Honor, just informational. I did find out in conjunction with pursuit of the agreement, the old Restmore deal, that has failed. So I think we're all chagrined by that. I'm sure the neighbors are concerned. I want them to know that we all identify with their concern. We in the village will continue to monitor that property, make sure that even though it remains unused, it will remain in compliance with the various ordinances. I am hopeful that, based on what I'm told, that the deal may be resurrected next year, or that maybe some other action will take place. But for the time being, the planned conversion to a retirement home, which would have been similar to Brandonwood, is now out of consideration, to regret for all of us.
No, we didn't vote on
We
the,
need to vote on
we need to vote on the
Oh, sorry.
Pizza Ranch.
All right, well,
Do we have any more comments on the Pizza Ranch?
no, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Dodd.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Anything else, Mr. Newhouse?
No, sir. That's all for tonight.
That concludes our regular business. We have a little human resources issue that General Counsel has advised us about, and we're going to have to go into executive session. We do not need any of the staff for this, so they're free to go. There will not be any action after the meeting, so there's not much point in anybody hanging around for that.